We're going to go over what is called dimensions within Sage Intacct. And dimensions is really part and parcel of the solution. It's actually one of the ways it's been designed since ground up. When you look at your accounting system today, it doesn't matter which one it is, 90% of the solutions use what's called segments or segmented approach. You all know you have your chart of accounts, and then somewhere down the line, you went and started creating extensions, i.e. segments, be it projects, be it departments, be it locations, and your 50 natural accounts quickly balloon to 20, 30, 40,000 lines, and it becomes a headache to manage year over year. This is one of the remedies to that problem. So when you look at Sage Intacct, it starts off with your core natural accounts like you would in any other solution. And then when you see the upper left-hand side of the screen, they're what are called standard. Those are what we call our core dimensions. So there's 7 of them that come out of the box. They are essentially a container, a repository of information that sit independently to your chart of accounts. You have the ability to rename these. Obviously, if you rename a customer to client, as an example, it's still going to work within the framework of what a customer dimension should, but it can adopt a new name and it will be reflective in all the reporting of the system as you like to use it. There is one in that first category called class, and that's a multi-purpose dimension. So, and every industry, every business has some uniqueness to it, and this is where that comes into play. So, you know, you want to start tracking revenue, and it doesn't exist there, you can use that as a classification system. As I move to the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see there's what's called user-defined. What we notice with individuals that have been using Sage Intacct is over time, there could be growth through acquisition. It's called a multi-entity solution, and obviously you could be in different verticals with your company, and you may need different classification systems. So we can go ahead and turn on at any given point additional dimensions, and these are called user-defined dimensions. And again, you can go ahead and name them whatever you need them to be, and then you can have them reflected in your system. The bottom part of the screen are called dependent specialties. So we have specific modules within Sage Intacct that we turn on depending on what it is that you use in the system. Not everybody would use projects as an example. So if you do use projects, we can turn that on. With projects comes that dimension, but it also comes a task dimension, assigning specific tasks to projects, and you can go ahead and use that as a classification. Another example would be inventory. So you're like, okay, great. You just spent 5 minutes explaining to me what dimensions are. It's just another fancy word as segmentation for what I'm understanding. But really, what does it serve? What purpose does it bring to life? And that's really around all of your reporting within the system. So what happens is, the best analogy I can give you is think of it from a social media analogy. Although not identical, but does serve the same purpose. When you think of Twitter and you do hashtag and it aggregates whatever you want to aggregate based on that hashtag, we're doing the same type of thing. We're aggregating the data based off of that dimension, right? So, and you can aggregate data based on multiple dimensions within the system. So you can go ahead and create parent-child relationships with your dimensions. You can also go ahead and create groupings in your reports, which will allow you to then populate the information in a pretty standard basis. Really what that means is, again, looking at a report where you may have a standard P&L report and you're looking at a section of your report and saying, I want to look at it by the lens at the very top here, which I haven't read, is I just want to look at my gross profit and I want to expand that by my different departments. You can go ahead and do that. You can go a little layer down and you can say, hey, under my expenses, I want to look at it through the lenses of my vendor. And again, 3 clicks and the information blows out and gets down to that level of granularity. So we'll be running another lecture later on this afternoon on reporting, so I'll touch a little bit on it because it is here, but we'll get into a deep dive of it later on this afternoon. So what I thought I would do is just show you actually the live product and bring it to life to you. So demo environment's got a whole bunch of different data in here. But really what it comes down to is when I create a dashboard, at the very top of my dashboard here, you're going to see I have a couple of field sets that I've enabled. These field sets, again, are my dimensions. You can choose up to 3 different ones. You have complete control on it, so I can go into the configuration of the system. I could say over here, so if my system catches up, which dimensions I want it to show. As I was mentioning, you could go into the system, you could go ahead and select your different dimensions through the filters over here. So these are a couple of the ones that I've turned on. Department, location, customer. If I wanted to change any one of these, again, there's no scripting in the system. I can just undo the flag, I can select the other one that I want. So once I've determined which dimensions are relevant to me, my functions at a particular dashboard, I could at any point here say, I want to go ahead and apply my entire dashboard off of a specific date period, and I want to look at it by the lens of a specific department or the lens of a specific customer, and select those, and then my entire dashboard that you see below here gets re-indexed, predicated on those options. So again, giving you an example, I want to see everything around 80 square. All my reports, I don't have to take them out of the system. Everything gets indexed and is reflective as to what I want over here. I mentioned earlier on, so in Impairman, that you have the ability to go ahead and rename dimensions. So we offer up in the system when you load up Sage Intacct, there's going to be an area around what's called terminology in your configuration. And you can go in here and change the naming conventions of your set dimensions. So again, we'll come back to the concept of class, and I may want to change the terminology of class, and I want to say, I want to use this for revenue as an example. So I'll just put rev, and rev here.
Use channel.
Channel?
Yeah.
All right. So I would call it channel and channels as an example, and I can go ahead and save that. And now, anytime that I go into any of my reporting or into the system, that's what's going to be reflective of that classification system. So if I come back over here and I go under the general ledger as an example, for general ledger, and then I go into my reports, and I go into the report center, and we will see now channels at the very top as opposed to class. And I can go ahead and use it. So I can go in here, I can add data to it, I can create these relationships. When I have a customer or a vendor, I can also create restrictions around the dimensions. So you may have a particular vendor that should only be used with a specific type of dimension. You can go ahead and make one-to-one a restriction relationship so that your individuals, your staff can only see that particular asset or facet of it. So how do I do that? Quite simply, I go into, for example, AR, I go into any one of my vendors within the system. I can go ahead and say, I'll take the ADP example, and I can go in here and say, when I'm using ADP, under the restrictions, I'm going to say that this is a restricted vendor, and I only want it available in a specific location, which is dimensions, so it's not available to all my legal entities, but just a particular legal entity. And I can also make a restriction, say, not only is it only available to that location, but when I enter transactions, I should only be able to select one or two of these options, and I can determine which ones these are in that standpoint. So how do we enter data? How do we get data populated into the system? Quite easily. When you enter a transaction, I'll just pull up any bill here. You'll see at the bottom part of my screen where I enter the transaction, and over where you see department here, over where you see location, those are the dimensions. So if I was to click on edit, right now everything is left open. I can simply go down into my drop downs and I can say these are the selections, and this is what's going to allow me to classify the information within the system. You can take it further. You can set up the configuration with a couple of clicks where it auto-populates a particular relationship with a dimension. So if I don't want to go ahead and select a drop-down and I want to say every time I enter ADP, it should be pre-populated to sales, I can go ahead and code that into the system. And again, no scripting. It's just through a series of a couple of clicks in platform services where I essentially go in here and say, I'm going to go into the object of the system, And I'm going to go look at customers as an example. And as I enter customers, the very first thing that I'm going to say is I want you to autofill related objects. And I'll go ahead and make that relationship there. And once I've gone ahead and made that autofill relationship, again, I come back over to my customer objects over here. I can simply say each and every time I want to create a relationship. So the relationship with the customer is going to be maybe with a location department. So I'm simply going to go down here and say create a relationship. Right here. So new relationship. And I'm going to create the relationship with said location. And that's it. And then I can make the relationship a one-to-many. So it's only a one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-one. It's really up to the different configuration elements that you want. But once I've essentially created that relationship, again, I'll go back to the concept of where we were in our customers, under the accounts receivable, go customers over here, and I'll say under AB square, every time I'm going to use this particular customer, I'm going to say that the location is going to be defined as Canada. That's going to be my hard requirements. So I'll go ahead and save that. And now if I was to create a new invoice, and provided that the system has caught up, and I go ahead and use AB squared as my customer, down at the very bottom, it's auto-populated Canada for me in the location. So there are some tricks and tricks that you can go ahead and set that up. Again, that's the everyday use. Really the benefit of it is coming back full circle to where I was from a dashboard perspective. So if I was to go to any one of these kind of controller dashboards and I created a P&L type of report, just like the one that you see here, I'm going to go ahead and expose all the information. And I'll bring it up to the screen. So really what I have here is a report that tells me my revenues and then my different locations. And if that's a bit small, let me just pull it up here for you. So I could say I'm interested in blowing out my revenues by a dimension because this report doesn't give me enough details. All that you would simply do is go again back into your report writer. So I would come back to my dashboard. I would go down to that report. I would say, let's click on the editor pencil. I would go into my rows of my account groups. I'd say under the net income, let me go ahead and expand that. And I want to see this by dimension of departments as an example. And you'll see just as quickly by doing 2-3 clicks, what I've done now is all my revenues are broken down by the respective dimensions and how every information is classified. So it's very easy. I can do it at the grouping level, I can do it at the actual account level, and I can do the same thing with my columns. So whereas right now you just see your actuals and your budgets, if again I wanted to go into the system and get into the columns, go over to my actuals column and say, you know what, this is not good enough for me, I want you to expend it, I want you to expend it by all locations as an example. Go ahead and set that up and let the system just do its thing. And now it's broken out. So I've got it done by 2 different dimensions in real time, and you're ready to populate that report. So it really gets you away from moving information from a classic report that you have and moving it out to Excel, but now it allows you to slice and dice the data and prepare these reports. And as part of the financial report writer, even if you have individuals in your organization that never touch your financial system but come to you for month end for specific reports, you can now have these programs be submitted out automatically at month end, whether it's a PDF copy, a digital copy, so on and so forth, and it lands basically within their inbox.
On the dashboard, do you guys, is that like a user-defined dashboard or is it a standard dashboard?
So the question, there we go. The question was, for the dashboard, is that a user-defined dashboard or is it a general dashboard that I just showed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that every dashboard is configured to user access. So there is no customization or special scripting. Really what it is me compiling a series of reports onto a dashboard and then granting access to specific individuals to that dashboard.
The user can create its own dashboard by doing all that.
Yeah, and so we'll be doing a course this afternoon on reports and dashboards, and I'll actually show you how you can create a fully personalized dashboard in 10 minutes or less, just like the one that you saw over there. Because all it is really dragging and dropping and then selecting elements into it. So
that afternoon session is about half an hour. Do you guys have a training video somewhere that we can look at?
Yeah, there's a lot of, so the question, if everybody can hear the question in the room is there any training available or training videos? To those both, so there are training videos that are available as to how to create it. We have an Intacct community, so when customers sign on, they get access to people that are in the same industry as they are, and they can ask questions amongst each other, but we also provide help and video documentation on things like this. Within the system itself, there's actually a help tutorial that's built in as well. So if ever you're stuck on something, I will simply go to the very top of my system. So, sorry, top between glasses and no glasses. So anytime that I'm on a dashboard, if I'm not too clear, I just simply go over to the help on this page, and it'll bring me right to dashboards, and it'll tell me exactly, all the different areas of how to create, how to modify, how to manage a dashboard, and that's available to you as part of the system.
Thank you.
Also, as part of the subscription, there is a Learning Center access, and there's a reports and dashboard course, which probably runs for 8 hours in total. They provide you full details on how to create reports and dashboards.
There's a question in the back of the room, so I think I'm going to...
In regards to the dashboards, when you do subscribe to Sage Intacct, they are, depending on your environment and your setup, there are some standard dashboards that are available to you that you can use right off the top as soon as you sign in, get your data in and start using it. So there are some pre-configured dashboards, but not every shoe fits all for every foot. So now you can only configure that how you want.
And I'm going to run to the back of the room because there's a question. So.
No, just 5 minute warning.
Oh, 5 minute. That was my 5 minute warning. Were there any other questions on dimensions and its concepts? The other thing I can tell you is, so from a reporting standpoint, you can pre-populate your groups that you saw in this drop-down here, where I have active customers, healthcare customers, all this part of your dimension groupings, you have the ability to preset this. So that's what I call a dynamic group. If I go into my system here under groups, and again I come back to the concept of customers, I could go ahead and create as many groups as I would like. And these groups, essentially what you can say is, look at all fields that exists within the profile of a customer, and I can do a combination of this. So it could be address, could be province, could be revenue, whatever you decide, and you say it is part of an operator, so greater than, less than, equal, and then you put a value to that. And as you add customers, modify customers, whatever the case may be, this group basically self-manages itself and auto-updates. Because it looks for these parameters for you, and then you can go ahead and use it as part of your reporting. So it becomes very powerful from that standpoint. If you want to have a little more control on it, instead of saying, take every single customer record that's in the system, you can now handpick and you can make what's called a static group. So you can hard code essentially your group within the system and say, I want to grab this subset of customers, and I've keyed it around those parameters. So we allow you to support both concepts from that standpoint. And with that, yes?
Can you tell us what is the fundamental difference between a class and a dimension, and how we can make the best use of it?
So when, I'm going to come back to that. The difference between a class
and a dimension, and how do we make the best use of it?
So what are the differences between a class dimension and another dimension, essentially?
There's something called a class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's also dimensions. Are they two different?
Yeah, so class is actually a dimension.
Okay.
So there's 7 dimensions that come as part of the system. One of them out of the box here, I'll come back to that PowerPoint where it was at the very beginning. Class is one of those elements that allow you to classify the information, which that classification, that repository is what we refer to as dimensions, right? So customer is a dimension, class is a dimension, location is a dimension, Vendor is a dimension. All these that you typically would use as a segment in a traditional system are now these independent classification systems that exist within the system.
So, in very crude accounting terms, can I essentially do my segment reporting in the system by using dimensions?
Correct. And it allows you to break out the information without having to manage those segments in your chart of accounts that you typically do, because this is a replacement of that. It's the best way I can say it's a matrix style of approach, right? So, yes. Yeah, that's a great question. So, Paramount, maybe I can have you jump in. So, from an implementation perspective, when you're bringing in information that had been traditionally classified as a segmented, how do you bring that over, and what does it look like?
Great question. Excellent question. So, if you're on Sage 300 or any other legacy system, you'll be using segments. What we do, we go through a data mapping process. So, you identify the GL account and whatever the segment is, department, and whatever the other segments are. You will map it. So you will have a natural account, as we call it in Intacct, and the department dimension and the other one. So the key difference here is it's not a lengthy chart of accounts. These are in different places, and these dimensions are attached on the transactional level, and they're in different places. And now with the power Ed showed, you could slice and dice based on that very easily on dashboards and reports. And then you also have some other powerful workflows, for example, department-based workflows you can configure. So it's not just for reporting, it's also for workflows and also for security. You could, in Intacct we have also something called employee user access. Not just the finance team is accessing the system. So the employees, you want to make a restriction to the department, you also put security on it. So the power of dimension is not just for reporting, but it's also for security and workflow as well. Thank you.